Hi, Quenton here, and today I'm going to tell you about a powerful tool that Google offers, which a lot of people don't know about. The tool is called Google Trends, and if you haven't come across it before, then keep watching, because you'll be amazed how powerful it is, and the amount of valuable information you can get from it. Everyone knows that Google is the world's most popular search engine. They deal with more than 40,000 searches per second. That's absolutely mind-blowing. Google Trends lets you choose search queries that interest you, and then graph their popularity over time. That might not sound super exciting, but I think when you see it in action, you'll see how powerful it can be. I'm really looking forward to showing you what this tool can do, so let's get started. First of all, fire up your browser and go to trends.google.com/trends. To get an idea how it works, let's look at some news-related terms. I'm going to start by searching for the British musician David Bowie. Okay, this graph is showing interest over time. In other words, how often this term was searched for over the last 5 years. As you can see, there's a huge spike where interest in this term was much higher than normal. That spike is on the 10th of January 2016, which is the day David Bowie's death was announced. Now, the scale on the left-hand side doesn't signify a particular number of searches. It's not 100 searches or 100,000 searches or anything like that. 100 is just the peak popularity for this term. 50 would be half as many searches, and 1 would be 1% of the peak searches. Anything less than that would be shown as 0, although there are still searches going on, just less than 1% of the peak. Another thing we can see, if we scroll down, is interest by region. This is showing us that David Bowie was most popular in the UK with 100. And if we scroll down, we can see that he was about half as popular in the US, with 50. That's calculated as a proportion of all queries from the region, not an absolute number, so you can compare popularity in a big country with popularity in a smaller country. In fact, the US has a much bigger population than the UK, so there will have been more queries from the US than from the UK. Think of it as interest rather than raw search numbers. Another great thing we can do is to compare the relative popularity of different search terms. So let's add in Beyoncé as a comparison. In here. Right, we can see from that graph that in general there's more interest in Beyoncé than there is in David Bowie, and I think that's pretty much what we'd expect. We can also look at the relative popularity on a map. Beyoncé beats David Bowie in most of the world, but in Ecuador and Uruguay and South Korea, then David Bowie is more popular. Okay, so this is all good fun, and we can kill a few hours playing with this, but how can we apply it to our online business? Well, it's a very good alternative keyword research tool. Let's say you're doing affiliate marketing for a tool that creates landing pages, like lead pages. Wouldn't it be useful to know whether the term landing page or squeeze page is more popular? Let's take a look. Landing page, in there. Squeeze page in there. As you can see, landing page is a much more popular term. And it's increasing in popularity too, which is a good sign. You can see it increasing as time passes. The term squeeze page is actually falling out of favour a little bit. So whether you're choosing a domain, or buying ads, or building links, that's really useful information to have. Now, of course, you'd want to look at some other keyword research tools as well to get an idea of the actual numbers of searches. Let's continue that example. Wouldn't it be interesting to see whether lead pages or their new arrival ClickFunnels is more popular. And ClickFunnels there. Now that's really interesting. You can see the more established product, Lead Pages, has been ahead until the end of 2016 here. But its new arrival, ClickFunnels, has overtaken it since then. That's really good information to have, and it's something that a traditional keyword research tool wouldn't tell you. It would just give you the last month or so of data, and it wouldn't show you who's got the momentum. Let's look at another example, cloud hosting. That's pretty hot right now, eh? Must be a growing term. Cloud hosting. Well, apparently not. There's no real growth there over 5 years. Let's compare it with Amazon Web Services. Now that is growing. It's a bit hard to see because of that spike, but it's clearly growing strongly, and it's a bigger term than cloud hosting. And the spike? Well, that's February the 28th. Amazon Web Services had a big outage, and a lot of websites went down, so obviously there were a lot of searches on that day. Let's look at another online business term, content marketing. Okay, we can see that content marketing has been around since at least 2004, but its popularity didn't really take off until 2012, and it just keeps getting more popular. Okay, let's leave the internet marketing space for a little while, and let's look at some popular consumer products. The hot product of the moment, a drone. So we'll look at the last 5 years. And search for drone. Now this is interesting. As expected, we can see that drones are growing in popularity over time. We've also got a pretty strong seasonal effect with these peaks at Christmas time each year. Let's compare it with a hoverboard. Now we can see a big peak at Christmas 2015 for the hoverboard, but it's much more subdued at Christmas 2016. So that's looking a bit like a trend whose time has passed. Let's compare it with an older product, the Nintendo Wii. We can see that historically the Wii has been a much bigger term than a drone. But with drones increasing in popularity, and the Wii now getting a bit long in the tooth, they're just about crossing over now. So you can see that Google Trends is brilliant for looking at seasonal trends and finding which products are seasonal and when demand for them is at its peak, which is all really important stuff to know if you're planning marketing campaigns, and it's something that most keyword research tools won't tell you. Let's take ice cream as an example. We'll choose the US because obviously seasons are different in different countries. So let's get rid of that. And that. United States. Ice cream. Okay, we can see a clear trend here. Interest builds to a peak in the first week of July, and then it falls away quite rapidly, and it's relatively low in the winter months. I think that's pretty much what we'd expect to see. Some other terms don't show very much seasonality. Let's look at shoes again in the US. Now there's some trends here around when people like to shop for shoes that might be worth digging into and understanding if you're in that market. But there's not a huge variation, and that's because people need shoes all year round. Let's look at a craft term, like knitting. Now that's strongly seasonal, with a big peak right at the end of the year, and very low demand in the summer. And that makes sense when you think about it. I mean, who's knitting woolly jumpers in the summer, right? One of the great features of Google Trends is being able to compare the level of interest in different countries, as we saw with our David Bowie search at the start. I know people I've shown this tool to have discovered new potential markets they didn't know about, and that's a great thing. But there's a couple of gotchas that you've got to bear in mind when you're comparing countries. For the first one, let's go back to our ice cream example, but this time we'll look worldwide. Okay, let's look at interest by region. We can see that ice cream is most popular in Singapore, the United States, the Philippines, New Zealand and Australia. So there's no huge surprises so far. But let's look at the other end of the list. Let's scroll all the way down. Now apparently they really don't like ice cream in Russia or Japan. I didn't know that. But hang on a minute. It looks like they don't really like ice cream in France, Germany or Italy. That can't be right. Italian ice cream's world famous. What's going on? Now, of course, it's because ice cream is an English language search term. People in Italy are searching for the Italian word for ice cream, gelato. In France, they're searching for crème glacée, and so on. I'm not going to even attempt the Russian or Japanese. So just because the English term for a product isn't popular doesn't mean people aren't interested in the product, so don't get caught out by that one. The international comparisons are really interesting, but they're only really useful to compare countries that share a common language, and that's usually going to be English. The other gotcha we've already touched on, but I want to show you another example to make sure it's crystal clear because a lot of people get this mixed up. Google Trends shows you how popular a search term is relative to all other searches. It doesn't give you absolute numbers. Let's look at a really generic search, news. Go for the USA. That's news in the USA over the past 5 years, and we'll compare it to news, but this time we'll change the filters, and in here we'll look for Gibraltar. There it is. Okay. Now, if you're outside the UK, you might not be familiar with Gibraltar. It's a British overseas territory, and it basically consists of a rock on the south coast of Spain. It's a good example because it's a really small place. There's only 30,000 people live there, and that compares to about 300 million in the US. So when you look at this graph, don't for a minute be tempted to think there are more searches for news in Gibraltar than there are in the US, because there certainly are not. Obviously, there are vastly more searches for news in the US than in Gibraltar, because there's just so many more people. What this graph is telling us is a higher percentage of all the searches conducted in Gibraltar are searches for news than the percentage of all the searches conducted in the USA that are searches for news. So news is a more popular term among the tiny population of Gibraltar than it is among the huge population of the USA. One final thing to be aware of is because you can't tell how many searches there are for a term using Google Trends, you can only get an idea of whether it's a big market or not when you compare it to other terms. Let's go back to internet marketing and let's look at link development. So we'll remove news. Okay. So that looks like a reasonable search term, seems to be solid demand. Let's compare it to link building. Turns out link development's not such a big term after all. Now let's just compare those to SEO. Wow. We can see that both link development and link building are tiny by comparison with SEO. They're hardly even registering on the graph there. So we've found a big term now, right? Well, yes, in internet marketing terms, SEO is a big term. But in the overall scheme of things, not so much. Let's look at weather. And as we can see, even SEO is a tiny, tiny term in the overall scheme of things. So when you're using Google Trends, make sure you don't get carried away with a graph that looks like a lot of demand until you put it into some sort of context by comparing it with other terms. And of course, you're going to want to check in Google AdWords or other keyword research tools and put some absolute actual numbers on searches before you make business decisions based on them. So that's Google Trends. Now I know I've given you a lot of warnings and caveats about it, but it's a fantastically useful tool for researching new markets and new businesses. I wouldn't be without it. It's great for seeing emerging trends and looking for keywords you can target. So I hope you found this useful, and I hope you're inspired to try out Google Trends in your own market. If you've enjoyed this video, remember to like it and share it. Please leave a comment, tell me what you think, or suggest a topic for my next video. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel and click the little notification bell so you'll be the first to know when we release new videos. I'm Quenton Fyfe for Online Business Transformation. Thank you for watching.